He's like just some kook who was like, I know the cure.
I know, it's in that girl.
No, you're lying too. He's dead. All I can do is
You're in
leave.
cahoot. You know what I'm in the mood for? Horrible puns.
Welcome to The Right Advice. I'm Randy.
And I'm Amber.
And I'm Lucy.
And today we are talking about the finale of The Last of Us, Season 1 on HBO Max. So what'd you guys think?
It was really good. I really liked it.
I think the gamers are kind of in a consensus. It was awesome.
It was really good.
I really enjoyed it. I felt the storytelling was strong. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was entertained, definitely, but I felt like it was a little disjointed from the rest of the episodes, and so my rating is maybe going to be a bit lower than your guys's, but I gotta admit, it was still entertaining, for sure. All right, we ready to jump into it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What'd you guys think of this bit?
So this bit was new to the show. So this was their way of explaining why Ellie is immune, which we didn't get in the game. They were just like, she's immune.
Magically.
Magic. Nice. So it was nice to have an explanation finally. But so I also really liked, for those of you that don't know, the one playing Ellie's mom is Ashley Johnson, and that is who plays Ellie in the game. So I was waiting this entire season. I was like, when's Ashley Johnson coming in? When's she gonna get here? So it was nice to see her in.
Yeah, I saw that at the very end of the episode, the guys who made the show were telling us that they wanted to have a sort of a genetic connection between the game and the show. And I thought, oh, I like that. Those kind of Easter eggs make it so enjoyable for people who really loved the game. Like, oh, yeah, not just that it's the actress there, but she's playing the mother of Ellie. You know,
I know, so it's very, very, I don't know.
Giving birth to the show. How about you?
I enjoyed that the actress is the one who played Ellie, and for me, I felt that there was actually a physical resemblance between her and the actress that plays Ellie in the show. Totally. So I thought that was cool. Also, this is a great way to open up this episode. So we have a pregnant woman fleeing, and of course we can guess that it's the zombies chasing her. And I don't know, there might have been some noises. Maybe I missed that. But, you know, it doesn't matter.
There was screaming.
There was screaming. Okay, so something bad. She's fleeing that. Immediately our sympathies go out there because it's a pregnant woman and we don't want her or the baby to be hurt. So it starts off immediately and then, so she ends up taking out the zombie, just the whole thing. And I'm thinking like, that poor baby, that poor mom. I felt so bad for him right away. And then so all of that. It opens up, exciting, a bang. And I'm expecting a pretty exciting rest of the episode. And I feel that we got quite a bit in this episode.
Yeah, this was definitely one of the more interesting openings that they had. It starts with a chase, which usually I'm kind of against that, especially if it's the first moment of the show. But of course, this wasn't the first episode, right? It was the last one. But it's a good way, I think, to engage your audience sympathetically to the character. Obviously, she's pregnant. You can hear clickers in the back, so you're like, oh my gosh, she's dead, because what's she gonna do, run forever? No. So I think that the writers did a really good job in having this be in here, not just for the explanation of Ellie, and I'm actually gonna come back to that point later on in the episode, but because you want to be sympathetic as soon as possible to your main character or to whatever's happening on screen. And just the fact that she's pretty helpless, you're already automatically sympathetic towards her. So it was really good. I thought it was extreme and dynamic that she's giving birth while she's wrestling this thing. I don't know if I believe that this is, once again, somebody gets bit while they're struggling with a clicker and doesn't realize it until after it's over. I think this is maybe the third or fourth time that that's happened, but I didn't mind it so much because she had a lot going on. Maybe the only thing about this that bothered me was that she dropped the dagger. She dropped it before the clicker came in. And I would think that even if you're giving birth, the thought of a clicker about to burst through the door, you wouldn't let go of that knife. And it was a little convenient, but not the end of the world. If it was maybe the first time this sort of thing had happened, it would be okay. But I think it was mostly okay for this particular situation. So, yeah.
Another aspect of the opening that I really enjoyed is Ellie's mom hands over the knife and the jacket that we see Ellie with throughout the series. And I thought that was great. I mean, there's this feel of continuation. And I also get a sense that Ellie inherited her mother's spirit. I mean, I can tell that Ellie's mom had to have been a fighter, and I don't mean like, out there duking it out with people. I just mean that she wasn't going to give up. She was going to continue, just like we see with Ellie. She's not going to give up on stuff. And I just really loved having that connection to Ellie's mom, these items that are so important to Ellie. And we've seen throughout the season 1 how she is so strongly connected to these items, how she's, wants them, they're important to her, and now we see why. So I thought that was just excellent.
And the first thing that she says to Ellie is, "You tell them, Ellie."
I loved
and
that.
She has not stopped telling them.
I'm not going to say it on YouTube, but the specific language that she uses, "you effing tell them," I thought that was great because it was like watching Ellie, and yes, like you said, Randy, her personality is encompassed in just that tiny little interaction with mother. That is what she has inherited from her mother, the fighting spirit and possibly some of the language. I know that couldn't really happen because she's an infant, but I just loved it anyway. It was good.
She's like, "I remember right after I was born, my mother."
It was one of the first things she said to me. It's a little sad, but it works. I thought that was good. Good connection. You ready for the next bit?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. Okay. What do we think?
So in the game, when you leave off from the last episode, the last part, the shots are very cool. Again, I love the visuals in the game. They're so good, especially for a 2012 game. But anyway, so when you leave off, it's a shot of, in the game, Ellie killed David with a machete, not an axe, or a
Dagger.
hatchet. She had a hatchet.
In the show, I think
Not
she had a
hatchet.
knife. Right?
Butcher's knife.
Okay.
Anyway, but she had a machete. She killed him with a machete in the game. So the last shot of the winter section is just the handle of the machete sticking up out of. You don't see his head. You just see the machete.
Like it's stuck in him still?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Nice.
So that's the final shot of winter, and then you move, and then it's like, it's spring now! And you get this scene where Ellie is very closed off, and Joel is more open, and they've swapped personalities almost.
Okay.
Where she's very, very closed off. Understandably so after something that traumatizing, kidnapped, cannibals, pedophile. Anyway, but so she's very closed off, and then Joel's just like, "Hey, Boyardee, this and this," and trying to cheer her up, and it's very opposite mirroring of the first episode.
Now,
or second episode.
No, it's mirroring. So
Yeah.
if you look at the first episode, right, like you said, they've changed position. Joel is freely talking about his daughter, Sarah, and Ellie is quiet, and she's wanting to not talk about her past and about what's happened. So we are totally seeing it. And, we can even imagine that probably Joel maybe went through a lot of the same experiences. I'm not necessarily talking about, David trying to rape her or anything, but there's so much that has happened to her, and we can imagine the same thing happened with Joel. So it's very interesting to see that mirroring and see that switching. Absolutely. And did you have more?
Yeah, kind of, but you can go.
No, go. Please, you first.
So then you go through the building, and you get the beautiful shot with the giraffe.
That's my favorite bit.
So pretty. I love visuals. But it's so pretty. And then you also in the game, in Ellie or Sarah's room in the very, very beginning of the game, there is a stuffed animal that's a giraffe and different art pieces that are giraffes. So Sarah was very into giraffes, you can tell. And then you see that's one of
Okay.
the only wild animals you see in the game, other than like dogs.
Monkeys? They weren't in the game?
Oh, and the monkeys. But you see like the monkeys and then giraffes, and it's so cool. Another connection between Ellie and Sarah. I know Ellie technically isn't like, oh my god, I love giraffes. But, you know, it's kind of bringing that aspect of Sarah back. And then also, kudos to, I don't know if it was Pedro or what, but in that scene where they're on the rooftop and they're like leaning against the, not railing, but the half wall, it's exactly the same. Like, he's even in the exact same pose and everything. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, that's so good.
Do you know if the actors had like a rule they weren't allowed to play the game before they filmed or something? I thought I heard something like that.
No. So when, I don't remember which, but one of the creators asked Bella Ramsey if they had played the game, and Bella said they hadn't. And they're like, okay, good, keep it like that. We don't want you to know too much.
What about Joel? What about, what's his name? Pedro?
Pedro, I doubt that he would even be able to play the game.
It's interesting that he would have picked up on the same body language, or maybe if like he watched a clip or something.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's literally the same pose. Anyway,
It's nice
I
when
like
they do
this.
that, right? When the filmmakers pay attention to the game so that you get that thrill of it being repeated in another form. Yeah, nicely done.
It was.
And it's got to be a challenge to the actors. Like if they had something else in mind for what they wanted to do, and then the directors are like, you got to do this, and then they have to change what they're doing. So it takes more effort to put little details in like that. So I appreciate that.
I mean, it's not like it's a hard pose. You know, he was just like leaning against it, but it was just exactly the same. So I keep saying the same thing over and over again. So I'm just gonna.
So apparently it was faithful to the game, and that made you as a gamer happy.
Very.
Okay, excellent. I did really love this episode. And there's a couple things here. So one is we're walking through the ruins, and it's beautiful, right? And this is kind of why I love post-apocalyptic games. And I'm like, I am kind of sorry that we didn't see more of this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these beautiful landscapes, this beautiful scenery of the post-apocalypse, and more encounters in that environment. I wish we would have had more. Still, I enjoyed seeing all of it. It was great. And then we had the interaction with Joel and Ellie. And for me, this was great too. So we see Joel, and for me, my mind's thinking that he's finally reclaimed his life, right? He is finally redeemed and ready to move forward, right? Which is really tragic if the rumors are true of what's going to happen. But anyway, so he's at peace with himself, finally, and then we see Ellie, and she seems very distracted, and I have to think that maybe that she is worried that this will be the end of the line for her and Joel. She doesn't have the same amount of fear, but there's definitely something. She is worried about finding the hospital and what that is going to mean. And that plays so well, plays in with the mirroring that Lucy is talking about, the reversal of roles. I just loved it. I mean, and let me just say, I'll say it here, the interaction between the two of them throughout this episode, I was riveted. Every bit of it, I could have watched more and more and more of it because it was poignant and it was well acted, and there was an underlying tension to whatever they were saying, and I loved it. So that was great.
So for me, this was the start of my biggest complaints about this episode. The first thing is Ellie being quiet and reserved. Now, I felt like there was a chunk of time missing. Obviously, there was a time jump because it was winter and suddenly now it's spring. But I didn't understand why she was behaving this way. This, to me, after everything that Ellie has been through in the past, she had to personally kill, and I'm assuming it was with a knife because that seems to be her weapon of choice, her best friend who she was in love with, after she had turned. And she's had people imprison her before. She has had people attack her and try to kill her before. She has had wrestling matches with the infected many times. So her reaction at this point, to me, made no sense. Because this is not, and if I thought maybe they're trying to say, okay, this is how you react when you have almost been raped. And that is not how you react when you have almost been raped. This is how you react when you have been raped. And so for me, it was just, there was something missing. And I kept on trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And I thought what you thought, Randy. I thought, okay, maybe she's afraid that this is going to be the end of the line. But Joel put an end to that thought very early in their interactions when he said, hey, I saw a guitar in the RV. Maybe I could teach you how to play guitar. So he's assuring her that they're still going to be together. And that's right there in the first, 2 minutes of their interactions together. So I'm going, okay, so it's not that she's afraid that they're not going to be together. And it makes no sense if she's reacting like this because of the rape. And it definitely doesn't make sense if she's reacting like this because she almost, had to wrestle with somebody to save her own life. Because all of these things, they had reasons for them not to be why she was reacting this way. So her behavior didn't make sense to me. And I was trying to figure out, okay, they're going to reveal something that tells me why she is acting like this. And I didn't get that throughout the rest of the episode. So her behaving like this threw me off and said, I don't understand why she's acting like this. And then Joel being kind of awkward and trying to hey, you cheer her up. And it's obvious that's what he's trying to do, cheer her up. I mean, I love what he's doing, but because her behavior didn't make sense, his behavior didn't make sense. It was like, she's doing something that doesn't make sense. And so any reaction to that, I'm going, they're only reacting because she's acting this way. So it didn't add up. And I wanted an explanation, didn't get one. And I would have liked to have seen that. I will say though, that giraffe scene, that was the best Ellie moment in the entire episode. This moment said she's a child with wonder in her eyes at seeing something so beautiful and, this feeding the giraffe. I gotta ask, do you know if it looked like a real giraffe with a green screen behind it?
I believe it was.
Okay. I was like, dang, that's good CGI. I don't think that the CGI for the background was great, but I thought that the giraffe looked fantastic. I was like, that's awesome. So good job with there, but it was so sweet. It was a moment of her being a real child, and you could see Joel appreciating that moment, looking at her and just going, she's finally having a child moment here, a moment of innocence and beauty and wonder. And I really loved that. Up on the roof, when they were talking, this part I thought felt very odd to me. So they don't know that she's going off. Well, if you're watching this, that spoilers are happening. They don't know that she's going off to leave Joel forever, right? They think she's going to go there, they're going to maybe draw some blood, and they're going to do something with the blood and be able to create some sort of a cure. But this conversation told me they're expecting something other than that. Like he's saying, you don't have to do this, like as if it's going to be really hard for her to go and have blood drawn. And him saying, there could be danger on the way. There's been danger this whole time. So I didn't get why this conversation had to happen here. It felt like it was out of place. I didn't understand what was going on in their heads, and it felt awkward to me. I mean, it was nice, but again, I felt like there was something missing, and maybe there should have been another episode before this one to kind of fill us in on what was happening in their heads. But I mean, it was nice interaction, just didn't make sense to me. So that was my thoughts.
I was surprised to see the giraffe. I really enjoyed that. It was definitely a high point in the show. Also, during the conversation that Joel's having with Ellie gives a line, and to me it was the best line of the episode, and it's so poignant. It's when Ellie says, "It can't all be for nothing," right? And that just kind of sums up the journey and where she's at, and even kind of what's coming up, right? I mean, it is so pivotal to all of that she states that, and that's where she stands on the matter. And then, of course, we're going to see that Joel's got a slightly different. I didn't have as much of a problem with Joel saying, we could just leave. Because, let's face it, Joel does not trust people. So, regardless of them telling him we'll take some blood and everything, it'll be good, I think Joel suspects that if there's a way to screw things up, people will screw things up.
That definitely makes better sense.
Well, he could also be thinking that, well, Marlene, knows this kid. She cares about this kid. What makes him think that she's actually going to let Ellie leave again? Even if they do only just need blood. Even if they did only need blood. Why would Marlene let Ellie leave if she cares about her so much?
Okay. Yeah, I could definitely see that being part of it too, for sure. We good on this bit? Mm-hmm. Yeah? All right.
That scene, really the only note I kind of took on that here again, Ellie and Joel, just enjoying the interaction between them. So I was just sitting and soaking up all the interaction, all the chemistry between the actors and between the characters. And this is another point that contributed to my enjoyment of the episode. I could have watched a lot, like I said earlier, a lot more of them talking with one another.
I'm gonna say it again. I really like how it looks. Even though this isn't the super overgrown, obviously it is overgrown because it's been 20 years, but it's not super overgrown. It's not as greenery as the last couple of scenes with the giraffes, but it's still really pretty to me at least. I really like how it looks. But again, also just really good and chemistry, and the way he's you know what I'm in the mood for? Horrible puns. But that was really funny to me. But one thing is different, and I'm not sure why they changed it. Because I personally think it made way more sense in the game. Ooh. So in the game, you go through go under a bridge, and it's slightly flooded. So obviously Ellie can't swim. You have more to do with this in the game because throughout the game there's lots of different things where there's lots of water and Ellie can't get through there. Anyway, but shows she can't swim, so you're trying to navigate through this very heavily flooded tunnel, and something breaks down and they both fall into the water. And so Joel is trying to save Ellie, and he gets her out of the water, but she's unconscious, and so he's trying to save her.
Oh gosh, more trauma.
And then the fireflies come up, and they find them, and he's they're like, hey, put your hands up. And he's like, I gotta save her. Give me a minute. And they're like, no. And then they knock him out without letting him save her.
What the heck?
Then she doesn't even wake up before they prep her for surgery. So it makes more sense. Okay. It doesn't make sense. Well, okay. It makes more sense in the game because in the show, it could be argued that Ellie already had consented to the possibility of her dying because they said that she was awake when she got there.
Yeah.
And then that they put her under. But in the game, they didn't actually give her a choice. So I like the game better because it lets me make the villains the fireflies. But it makes more sense in the game because then why would they put her under without telling her, hey, we're going to prep you for surgery to make a cure?
Seems like an obvious kind of cruel thing to do.
So it makes less sense here, and I'm not sure why they changed it. They could have also just had her also get knocked out, and then, or her get just actually knocked out by the flashbang, and then it would be fine. We didn't even necessarily need the water, but the fact that she was awake when she went there, got put under at some point, and didn't know what was going on when she woke up, I didn't like that.
I think I would have preferred something similar. I would have preferred the flashbang knocking her out. I don't know if I would have preferred that she's unconscious and not breathing, and they don't let Joel save her, because that's like, to me, that doesn't make any sense. Like,
well, that's another thing showing, and I'll talk about this later at the end of the video, but...
it does make them look really evil.
Yeah, like it shows that they don't care about her. And as much as Marlene says, this, I don't want to do this, it hurts me too, but they don't really care about her.
Yeah, you're sitting there going like, no, you don't. Shut up.
Anyway, but I'll get more into how I hate the Fireflies later.
Okay. Nice. More hate to come. How about you, Randy?
I really don't have anything until we hit the gunfight.
Oh, the gunfight.
All right. So this scene for me, this conversation absolutely oozed, this is our last conversation. Everything that happens in the medical camp, I mean, they're both spilling all of their, well, he is anyway, spilling his past secrets. Like, he knows this might be the last time that I'm going to talk to her. So when this scene happened, I paused and I said, holy crap, I think that Ellie's going to be gone. They're going to take her and Joel's not, that's what's going to happen. It just felt like this was a sort of like a math equation. If you're going to do this, you have to do these things before you get to this result. And so at this moment, I knew that that's what's going to happen. At some point, they're not going to have a chance to talk to each other again, or like immediately anyway. And I forgot what the heck I was saying. Something about Marlene.
I don't know.
Well, anyway, whatever it was I was saying about Marlene, I forgot. I had to take a break for a second, but maybe I'll remember it at some point.
Maybe.
So we were talking about, you were talking about how she went unconscious in the game. And then I said, I remember. Okay, so I thought that maybe Joel really did think that Marlene was going to take her away forever. And I didn't think that it was obvious to the audience that that was going on. So for me, just this moment felt like they were prepping for this is the last conversation that they're going to have. So for me, I just, I wanted something more. I wanted that conversation to happen beforehand, before this last second moment where we're like, someone's about to die or go away forever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, what do they say? Like, get all your ducks in a row, or, put your affairs in order. I felt like that was what was happening here. And I would have liked it if it was what you said happened in the game, where they came out and there was this moment where she's put unconscious, and I'll talk about that part later too. But as far as the conversation subject matter is concerned, that was my biggest deal with this bit. What'd you guys think?
As I said, I don't have anything else until the gun battle.
Okay. All right. How about you?
So it's a very small thing. So it's not even necessarily a complaint, but it's
almost a complaint. Uh-oh.
Well, okay. It's just another thing that they did different. So in the game, Joel is much less touchy-feely. Even after he has grown to love Ellie, he's still not as touchy-feely as he is in the show. So in this, he wakes up after being knocked out, right? And Marlene's there, and they have this conversation, and she's like, you don't need to worry about her anymore. She's here. She's safe. And he's like, I worry. And he stops her, and he says that, like, I worry. I don't know. Just that one line. I really like that. I'm kind of sad they didn't put it in there. But it's okay, because it's not like we're lacking for affection for Ellie.
Yeah.
So.
And he definitely... he had the face that said it, right? You could see that he was concerned. He looked kind of like, huh? I thought it was a little silly that he's like half out of the bed and half not out of the bed for a minute there. But yeah. So for me, this conversation, I thought was kind of stupid of Marlene. I mean, she's got to know that Joel is a killer, like, right? I mean, it's one of the first things that she says to him is, how the hell did you survive? We had a whole team of guys. I had 5 people to protect me, and I still almost died. Ellie would have died on the first day if she had come with us. So she knows Joel is a badass. She thought so in the beginning, and she still thinks so now. She's like got her concerns are confirmed. And when the first thing he is saying is, I want to go and see her, that should be a clue that he has some love and care for her. Even if she didn't know that in advance, he's been traveling with her for how long at this point? It should occur to her that he wouldn't want her to, go off and die, right? So I'm going, okay, why are you telling him that's what's going to happen if he's so dangerous, right? And I know maybe she assumed like we've disarmed him or whatever. Maybe she thinks he's not dangerous, but she just said you are the baddest badass out of everybody. By yourself, you protected Ellie, and I had a team of guys who couldn't do it. So I'm just going, you're an idiot, Marlene. Why? Like, how did you become the leader? I mean, I know how she became the leader. She's actually a good, like, strong female leader. We haven't seen her doing a whole lot in the way of command as, in, what do you call it, like a combat situation. But the way she talks to people is leaderly. Her whole presence says she's a strong woman, right? So I'm just going, this is a stupid move. She should have led him on and everything's fine. Just keep waiting and then turn to her guys and like get him out of here. Get like 10 people, put your guns on him and get him out of here. Because this moment I felt was just too stupid on her part to not know that he would object to this in some way. Was there anything in the game that said Marlene thought that she wouldn't give 2 cents over Ellie's life?
Well, in the game, we don't really get to see as much of the connection between Marlene and Ellie. Like, we know that Marlene knew Ellie's mom, but we don't know, like, if she was in Fedra school in the game, or if she was just in a regular orphanage, or if... We don't know what was going on with Marlene and Ellie in the game.
Definitely in the show, she was at the Fedra school the whole time. Like,
yeah.
Ellie got dropped off at Fedra. So I'm going, well, just because Marlene doesn't care about her doesn't mean she would automatically think that Joel wouldn't care about her. Unless there was something in the past with Joel that made her think he just will think she's, nothing anyway.
That could be her thing, because I don't know how much of his past as, like, a raider is well known to other people, but if she knows, then she's like, well, he's a bad guy, why would he care about this little girl?
Okay.
Especially if she doesn't know about Sarah, considering it's probably very hard to know about Sarah, considering, only 2 people who knew her are Tommy and Joel, and they don't really speak that openly. So she probably couldn't have predicted the amount of attachment he has gotten for her.
Okay.
Because not only is she, like, just very important to him as Ellie, she's also very important to him as another daughter after losing and failing to protect his first one. So she couldn't have predicted just how much she would mean to Joel.
Gotcha. I still think common sense would have said, if the first thing he does is ask where Ellie is, take me to her and all that stuff, she should have assumed, maybe I shouldn't tell him that we're killing her right
no
now.
one in the game is that smart, They all got their flaws.
I feel like I'm going to think that they're going to make a game update. Like, they're going to do The Last of Us again with, the better, like, you said that it looks great. And I've seen some bits of it and I go, wow, this really does look good. But I also know the technology is there that it could look even better.
Yeah, they've done a couple of different remasters. So
okay.
I know...
I mean, like, totally reshoot the game.
Oh, completely reshooting. That would be...
I mean, it'd be kind of neat if they did it with the actors and actresses from the show,
really
too.
Hard. That would be really hard to do. I mean, they've updated the graphics. So there was the 2012 version. And then they came out with a remastered version, like, last year, 2 years ago.
Was it just cleaned up, or was it, like, they enhanced it and made it look more realistic?
Like, they enhanced it. Like, it looks
okay.
significantly better than it did in
2012.
Original 2012.
Okay, nice.
And then they also put it on PS5, so you can also get, like... It's slightly better on the PS5 as well. So, I mean, they've touched it up because their fan base is thriving. So, you know, they're more than happy to make their fan base happy. But
Okay. So the only other thing left in this scene that bugged me was she explains how she says, okay, Ellie, and this actually is going back to something that you brought up. She's explaining how she thinks that the doctors are going to do this, you know, like how cordyceps has grown with her as a baby and all this other stuff. I realized at the end, although it was nice to know this information, it kind of wasn't needed because we're here with Joel. Joel is the POV in this situation, right? We are with him. He doesn't need to know this information, and it kind of made that beginning scene a little less necessary. I still enjoyed that beginning scene with the mother and all this stuff, but I understand why in the game it wasn't there and why they didn't explain it. Because you don't need to know that information in order to understand what Joel is going through. So for me, that was just a minor complaint there, like maybe make it somehow like he needs to understand why Ellie really is the only person. Maybe, you know, that's why they decided it was mom got bit while she was still, you know, attached with the umbilical cord. I don't know. But either way, it was just a tiny little thing. I thought maybe they could tweak it a little bit to make it a bit more like he needs to know this stuff. So
all that talking made me think of something now. So Joel's here and Fedra's there. And as soon as I see him, like, oh, I'm sorry, not Fedra, the
Fireflies.
The Fireflies are there, right? Marlene is there, right? And I'm like, why is Marlene there? I mean, wasn't the point that it was too dangerous?
yes.
And that Joel needed to go because only Joel could make it through there. So if I'm playing a game and they send me and they're like, you're the only one, it's too dangerous, we'll all die. And then they end up being there before me. What's the point of that?
Well,
At the very least, why didn't they at least all go together?
Yeah.
she couldn't because she was injured. She had been shot by whatever, Richard or whatever, in the beginning of the game. So she was unable to go at the time. So it's not that it was... She had to get Ellie out at that time. And so it was dangerous to try and sneak Ellie out any later than that. It would have been dangerous to let Marlene heal fully before getting her out. Because they had that plan to... do explosions and stuff across town.
So there's a reason. It still would annoy me
Yeah.
to show up at the end and surprise.
Like, why couldn't they have
here.
held on to her until it was time to go? You know, like, well, just, go into hiding with us while we wait to, leave. Instead, she's going to send Ellie off with complete strangers, right? I don't know. It was a long time before they got there. How many months do you think went by?
A year.
Oh my
Almost a
gosh.
full year.
Well,
Roughly.
So, yeah, it kind of surprised me and confused me at the same time. I think that maybe they could have thrown in one line or two lines of dialogue and cleared it up. It's like, well, it took me a long time to recover from the gunshot. And, yeah, we got here first because we had vehicles, which we didn't give you. And, but at least I'd have felt a little bit better than that. So...
And you know what?
It did bother me a little bit.
That would have also explained. So, okay, she basically. Okay, let me see if I can. Let me think about this for a second. Okay, so she's there. She didn't expect that they were going to come.
You haven't been infected, have you?
I don't know. You were in the middle of talking, and I thought of what I wanted to say, and I was like, oh, I know exactly what I need to say here. It was, oh my gosh, I think I've lost it. Damn it, what the hell was it? I don't remember what it was.
It's the spores.
The spores have eaten my brain, and now I can't remember what the heck the point was that I was going to make. Oh well, maybe it wasn't that important. Let's move on. Or do you guys have more on this?
Actually, I'm going to take this opportunity to hate on the Fireflies.
Oh, all right.
All right, so...
No way.
The whole point for Ellie is get Ellie, make a cure, save the world, right? And you brought this up pretty early on when they were first talking about getting a cure from Ellie, was Fedra's not going to let them do this, which is still an excellent point, because why would Fedra relinquish control to this group that they have been fighting for 20 years? Like, Fedra is corrupt. yes, there are good Fedra agents sometimes, but as seen in Kansas City, Fedra is not wholly good. No one in this world is wholly good, because it's kind of hard to be really good in a zombie apocalypse.
Except Graham Greene and his wife in that cabin. They were good.
Except for them.
Were they Fedra?
No.
That's right. But they were good. You're right.
They were good.
They were good.
I'm not saying they were Fedra. I'm saying that they were good.
But it's...
And funny.
So... so Fedra would not let them distribute this openly in quarantine zones. So even if, which is where a good chunk of humanity is, or if they're raiders, they're just in cities. But it would be so hard for them to even distribute this cure if they got this cure. Then you get into the semantics of, would they even be able to get a cure? And I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be able to actually make a cure. Because, how do we know that they even have the technology? How do we know that the machines that might have been possible to make a vaccine, how do we know those machines are still working?
Well, and to me, I don't know that they're making a vaccine, because if they have to pull this out of her brain...
and then multiply
multiply it, and then won't it also kill the people when you put that in their brain? If it kills her taking it out, why wouldn't it kill them putting it back in?
That's another thing.
So what, they're going to put it in her brain?
Yeah.
Or they're going to put it in their brains?
That's another thing. How do you even distribute the cure? Like,
we're going to cut your brain open.
And also, let's say that you can give it to the non-infected people and it prevents them from getting infected. That doesn't mean that they're gonna magically cure the world. They can still be torn apart by clickers or bloaters or regular runners. They can still be killed.
Well, did she say, she didn't say it was a vaccine, but she said it was a cure. So I'm wondering if she meant like...
How would that, how?
I mean, you cut the guy's forehead open and it looks like plant fibers.
Yeah.
Like, that they can live perfectly fine after that.
So, even if Joel had not done what he did, I don't think there is any possible chance that a cure would have been made. That it would have worked.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I agree.
That's my segment for crapping on the Fireflies.
And I remembered something. I just remembered what it was that I forgot when you were talking, Randy. Okay, so these guys knew that somewhere in the country there is a guy and a girl and possibly another woman escorting, a guy and a woman escorting a girl here because we're going to make the cure, right? That's why they're at this place in Colorado. Or
to save the world.
To save the world, right? So why, when a guy and a girl shows up in town, do they flashbang and we didn't know who you were? Who else did you think they were?
Why don't they send out patrols to search for them in case they're having trouble getting to you? I don't mean like real far away, but you could have patrols out beyond the border of the city looking for them.
Again, Fireflies suck.
Additionally, why were they still waiting? Because I thought, okay, maybe they go all the way over here. Who knows how long Marlene has been there with these guys? But she gets there and Joel and Ellie aren't there. So I'm like, okay, maybe they didn't recognize Joel and Ellie. Like, they didn't see, it didn't put two and two together. Like, oh gosh, like this must be the guy and the girl that we were waiting for. Maybe they didn't recognize them because they assumed they must have died. It's been a year. They must have died on the journey. So then why is the doctor still at this place waiting? Why? It's so remote. I mean, I didn't see like a settlement of other people. Is there one?
No, but he was still looking for a cure. So
okay. So
by the way, there was only one doctor that was able to make a cure.
Okay.
So-called Joel cure. Has killed him.
And he's no longer alive. But
thanks, Joel.
So in the game, you explore in the hospital more, and you end up finding like video recordings from the doctor saying he was looking for a cure and he was doing experiments and stuff. They just weren't leading anywhere.
Okay.
So he was working on it. He just didn't have any leeway.
Gotcha.
All right. And then for me, that brings up like another problem with this. So Joel's knocked out. I'm going to guess he's knocked out for a couple hours, right? So in that time, this doctor has discovered a cure. he has determined that Ellie, without, I mean, I don't know how, that has the what do you call
Cordyceps?
it? Those things in her head, and that's what, and then it tricks the other ones into thinking that, it's they're already infected and not to spread. All right. To me, that seems like that would take quite a while, weeks worth of research to determine actually why Ellie is immune. Not like 4 hours or 2 hours or however many hours it was. It would take time to figure that out. You'd be taking blood samples because that's probably the smartest place to start. Blood samples to see if something's flowing through the blood that is making her not tasty to the things, and or whatever, right? It would just take so long to figure that out. And
now let's just cut her open now.
Yeah, let's just cut her brain open, because that has to be the only solution there is.
And it's urgent we do it now.
How do we even know if the doctor was an actual doctor?
How
do we know he didn't like fail out of med school?
That's right.
He's just some kook who was like, I know the cure.
I knew, it's in that girl.
Maybe he was just an actor who played a doctor on television.
I was actually wondering what happened to all the people from the West Coast. That was one of them.
That's a Hollywood guy. People? He made it that far, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So we get to the gun battle. Oh, I love that gun battle. That was so great. And that is... Oh, I'm going to let Lucy talk. She's going to bust open if I don't let her talk right away. Go ahead.
Okay, so... All right, it's a little bit different than the game. So in the game, you go through this initial thing. Obviously, you're playing. So you are going through and, killing guys left and right because you're awesome and you're Joel. So... You are doing this, and it's so good. Anyway, so then you... Okay, so it's hard to explain. So...
It was awesome.
They kind of combined this first scene where you're playing, and then combined that with a cutscene later on. So they kind of combined them. So in the game... You are playing and you're shooting guys, and then you go and you find Ellie, and then you have this amazing... Okay, it's not technically a cutscene. So, but there's... Okay, it's hard to explain. Listen, I'm not great with words. So then you get Ellie, and you are controlling Joel as he's trying to escape. And the Fireflies know where he is, so they're chasing him. And there's this, they start playing the music for the game, and it's really like loud, and there's like really bright lights all over the hospital, and you can't defend yourself, and you can't shoot anybody because you're holding Ellie. Okay. So you are running and just trying not to get shot because the other Fireflies are shooting at you.
Nice.
So you get this beautiful 30 seconds, 45 seconds, where you are completely vulnerable.
Desperate.
You might be able to die in this, I don't know. Where you are completely vulnerable, and you're just carrying Ellie, and you're just like, I need to get to where I'm going. And so you're running as fast as Joel can, and there's bullets, and you see flashlights from the Fireflies behind you, and you hear them yelling, and you hear the music growing louder, and the lights, because it wasn't like the ceiling lights that are in hospitals. It's like these kind of lights,
okay.
The lights that you guys can't see.
The lights that you guys can't see. What are they called? What's this called?
LED. It's called a video light.
Video light.
Okay. Floodlight.
Floodlight, there you go.
There's a bunch of floodlights. So it's so beautiful. And then in the show, you get this where they kind of combined these two scenes where you see Joel finally get to kill people.
Yes, that's important.
So you get him, and he's very methodical, and he takes 2 bullets max to kill each guy, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So he's very methodical. He sees a guy, boom, sees a guy, boom, sees a guy, boom, right? So it's you finally get to see what he's capable of when he has his mind set on something. And it's so good. I'm so glad they didn't take the scene away. And they kind of combine it because they bring in that very, like, emotional music as he's doing this.
Yeah.
And
So I can imagine if you're playing the game that this has got to be one of the best parts of the game, right?
Yeah.
Your
So
heart's
good.
pounding, you're trying to run. I mean, everything's on the line here, right? The stakes have really been built up to this point, and you don't have earlier, right? You don't have a gun in your hand, and you're going through and having to dodge and just run, hide, dodge. I mean, whatever to get her out of there. That has got to be an amazing.
Well, it's just like a sprint. You can't even, like, crouch down or anything. So you
Right.
are holding Ellie and you're just sprinting.
That's got to be super exciting to play.
It's so good. Makes me cry every time I see that scene.
Did you cry in the show?
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, and I love the gun battle, and this is the Joel that we've been waiting for all season, and definitely this is the Joel that the legend is about. So I love that. It did have before we talked about the Fireflies and all of that. The problem, one of the problems I had, the only problem I had before we hashed this out on the video, is that Joel's going through and he's shooting and he is reloading often. Now here's the thing, in Hollywood, I'm used to the revolver that fires like 100 bullets,
Yeah.
all right? That I'm used to, but this, they're putting
opposite.
magazines into it. He fires like 3 rounds and he's changing out magazines after 3 rounds. Okay, I did not care for that. I get that in these kind of games, ammo is reduced, but don't show me Joel picking up 2 or 3 magazines and then only shooting 2 bullets out of each one. That just, okay, that was kind of a problem for me.
It's like the opposite problem of the usual
It's the opposite, right? Like,
you
let's
went
go
the other extreme.
to the other extreme. And you know what? I actually preferred the whole 100-bullet revolver better than this one. So I do love the fight scene. And it's during this point that I have this idea. And the idea is that I finally understand Joel's thinking, right? Joel's doing this knowing, and this is kind of comes in when he shoots the doctor, and we're like, oh, so much for the cure, right? Joel, let me look at my notes real quick. I mean, the world is broken. Just too broken. Ellie's sacrifice won't be able to save the world because it isn't the zombies that are destroying the world. It's the people. And to me, I'm like, I get it, right? Yeah, shoot those guys. Because, save the good person, save the person that you can, and, don't worry about humanity because we're lost. How grim, right?
I do like, whereas Tommy and Joel.
Johnny. That team.
Tommy and Joel. One wants to save the world. One wants to save the people he loves. Right? So Tommy is all about saving the world and wants to be a hero. Joel does save his world. His world being Tommy and Ellie. Anyway, that's that.
No, good observation.
He said he saved his world.
Okay, so I had a few issues with this bit here. So we've established that Joel is a badass. And Marlene has confirmed she thinks he's a badass, but she sends only 2 guards off with him. And as they're escorting him, they're not pointing their guns at him. And they've got the rifles, right? They're pointing down and they're close to their bodies instead of keeping him in front of them and like, we're ready to lift and fire if we need to. So they're not very good guards. And I thought that these were supposed to be badasses also, right? I mean, they just went across the whole country facing the same kinds of dangers that Joel did. So I was like, these guards are stupid and Marlene is stupid. But anyway, Joel is doing what Joel does and, takes him out. Then this whole shootout bit, I thought it was very nicely filmed. I liked it. I did have some issues with he seems to be bulletproof and these guys seem to be stormtroopers. because there's a scene of him walking down the hall and there's 3 guys in the hall. They have taken cover and they're firing at him. He's smack in the middle and killing them one at a time like this. I'm like, they all missed? Not one person got him? Like, not even nicked him? Like, he doesn't even have a bullet wound. Just bulletproof.
His dodge stat is really high.
It must be. Or he's got some sort of an invisible force field, right?
I was not that bulletproof when I played.
Oh, so you actually... Oh, that's right. You said that the cutscene is the carrying her, right?
Kind of.
Oh, no, it's not. You're playing
yeah,
that
I am
too.
controlling, but it's
Okay.
mainly a cutscene because you can't really do anything except move.
Okay. Well, so either way, I was really surprised that these guys who just went all the way across the country were such poor shots and that not one person could get him, not even accidentally hit him. But anyway, so there's that thing. And overall for this particular scene, here's the thing. So I would have done 2 things. So I tend to do this. I'll watch a movie or a show and I'll say, you know what? I would have done this differently. This moment could have had a lot more emotional impact. It was still good, I like it, but we could have had so much better if this was something that fell into, that fell out of the expectations of Joel. So here's one thing. We could have done, Joel is no longer a fighter. So let's go. We want this ending. This is what we want. We want to have Joel being a badass through the hospital, killing everybody and taking, we want to be going like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. This is amazing, right? But he is a badass who we know will do anything to protect the ones that he loves, including torture guys sticking daggers in their knees and, whatever, all this stuff. So we know he is a badass. And then we get to the hospital and we see him continuing being a badass, killing these people just as ruthlessly as he killed the guys in the previous episode. So there wasn't a shocking thing. It wasn't like we didn't expect this of him. We expected this to happen of him. So if I was going to keep this ending, I would have said that this is not what we expected of Joel. Like, we should have set it up so this is not what we expect. Maybe by the time we get to know Joel at Boston, he has changed. He was a badass, but now he's not anymore. Or he's like old and he used to be, everybody used to know him and they still want to come up to him for advice and whatnot. But his fighting days are done. Then they beg him to take Ellie across the country and do this. And you see him avoiding danger the whole way until you get to the hospital and he has fallen in love with this girl or you know what I mean, like as a father. And then he wants to save her. And then you see him be a badass after having not really seen him do that through the whole rest of the series. So I would have liked that. And yeah, I'll admit they should have showed him being more badass more throughout the series. But we knew that he had this in him from episode 1 when he stabbed the guy in the face or whatever. He beat the soldier guy to escape Boston. So that's one thing that they could have done. Another thing that they could have done is they could have made Joel more like Tommy. So maybe Joel is the one who wants to save the world after Sarah dies. And for him, it's, I have to, create the world that Sarah wanted. Like maybe Sarah had this desire in her to make the world a better place. And so he's trying to live up to, and he always scoffed at it kind of, and now he's trying to live up to her expectations, even though she's gone. Like, I want to have made my daughter proud. And we see him escorting Ellie to possibly be a cure for the world, right? This would be the ultimate show of him fulfilling, his past daughter's wishes, right? But then when he gets there and finds out, well, they're going to kill Ellie, that's when he says, you know what? No, screw the world. I'm going to save Ellie. I'm going to kill all of them in order to do it. I don't care about the world. I care about, well, not that I don't care about the world, but my love for Ellie is too much. I'm not going to let anything happen to her. That would have been an interesting growth in this character. Instead, we saw him doing exactly what we kind of expected him to do. And when you get to the climax or the point in a story where a character has kind of not an epiphany so much as a metamorphosis, they change in some way. That is a very, very emotional thing to see happen, to see a character go through a lot of change. And we just didn't see that with Joel. So this would have been one way to make that change happen. So if you're going to keep the ending, I think this would be a reconsideration on the part. I mean, obviously it would change Joel's character, but not a whole lot really. I mean, it would make their bonding experience, I think, even more interesting because we know that Joel is not the type of person who tries to allow himself to get attached to people. If his mission is to save the world, right, then what we would expect to see is he doesn't want to get close to her, and then he does along the journey. Does that make sense? So, hey, either way, what I'm trying to say here is you want your characters to go through a major change, and having a climax like this could have been so much more potent if we didn't expect that this is how he would behave anyway, right? The other way you could change it is change the ending. So keep Joel the same, but change what happens at the end. Have Joel in that garage when he looks at her and she says it's not too late to change and do the right thing. What do you think Ellie would have wanted to do? You could have had him say, let's wait till she wakes up and see what she says. And then Ellie says, we're going to, I'll go through with it. I'll go ahead and die and they can take the cure. Because that would have been so painful to watch him have to pass the choice on to somebody else, right? He wants to protect her, but instead he decides it really is up to her. So we'll do what she wants. And she says, I want to go ahead and make this sacrifice for the world. And it's a sacrifice that she's making on his behalf as well, because he loves her and he would have to sacrifice continuing to have her in his life. So those are the I guess it's three things, but those are the things I would have done differently, but it would have required kind of a rewrite of the whole show if you want this moment to be really, really potent. All right. So, did you want to go first?
No, you can go.
Right. Okay, so this moment here is going to be very important in what happens in the rest of the episode. So Ellie wakes up, and this is the part where she says, what do you mean drugs? So he says the drugs are, you're probably still feeling loopy because of the drugs or something. And she goes, the drugs? Like what? So was she drugged without knowing? I mean, or is this just delirium and not really, being fully awake yet?
Yeah, this is what I mean when I say it doesn't really make sense the way they changed it.
Yes. Because I'm imagining now that they gassed her without her knowing, or like somebody like came up from behind and stuck her. I'm like, well, that wasn't not putting fear in her. I mean,
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I could see them maybe saying, okay, she's still waking up, so she's not fully aware of what happened, or her memory's a little off. I've been there where people wake up out of anesthesia and they freak out. So like I get that, but it still was awkward. I mean, you got to make everything clear and make sense at some point, at least in these. And I feel like the after this doesn't quite make sense. So anyway, I do wish they did what you said.
I don't know why they changed it. They didn't even have to add the water in there, because that would have added more time onto the episode. But, they could have just knocked her out.
They could have had the flashbang do it, just like you said.
Problem would be solved. We wouldn't be confused.
Yeah. So her behavior in the car, because I'm thinking, all right, maybe this is just her being a little out of it and delirious. I was looking for a facial expression here, because I've watched this episode now only twice. And I'm thinking, I'm not seeing a facial expression that clearly tells me the rest of this episode will make sense. And when we get to the rest of the episode, I'll explain why. But I've watched this bit, I've tried to see it, and I'm just going, I don't see it. Now, the only thing that she did that maybe is a hint towards why she's thinking what she apparently is thinking, as she reveals later in the episode, is she turns around and faces the other way. But I don't know. I just didn't catch. This may have been, I don't know if she was directed to do this or if this was the actress believing, because when you're sideways, maybe your facial expressions aren't as obvious. But to me, I didn't see the facial expression that tells me that she's thinking in her head what she is almost very obviously thinking later in the episode. So something happened here that didn't quite work. All right.
This is sad. The ending always makes me cry.
Why? Why does it make you cry?
Because it's not necessarily sad. It's just, I don't know, it's just emotion.
Those pesky emotions.
But, well, you get this another moment where he is even more openly talking about Sarah. Like, he brought her up back in the, like, med camp or whatever that Fedra set up. And so he brought her up. So he's obviously okay bringing her up and talking about her. But then this is the first time in the game, at least, that he actually talks about her. And he says, yeah, I think Ellie and you and Sarah would have been good friends, which I also think that they're very similar.
I remember you saying that in the first episode, saying that you definitely feel they would have been friends.
Mm-hmm. But then you get to this moment where she is asking him, swear to me that everything you said is true. And they changed the line. Okay, I'm gonna get back to my thing. I interrupted my own thought process. But so in the game, he has this line and he says, I've struggled with a really long time with surviving, but you keep finding something to fight for. And they changed it. And I'm kind of upset about it because I really liked that line. He changed.
Although I think that the line that he does, I mean, that's kind of one of the only comments I have for this end segment. His line is beautiful, right? Because he says, you keep going until you find something new, so it's similar, right? And it's such a beautiful thought, right? And it sums up the story as a whole. I mean, so if I'm writing, I get to the end, I had better have a line that punctuates what I've accomplished, what my story has told the reader, or in this case, the viewer, right? And I feel that even though it's not as good as the one from the game, it did a nice job. And see, I wasn't disappointed because I didn't know the game line. I only know this line, and it was very satisfying. And I'm at the end, and I've got that message. You know, it's kind of like, okay, we're at the end. Here's our message. Boom. And they delivered that, and I was super happy with it. Now, go back.
Yeah.
Did you get back to where you interrupted yourself, or where are we? And then I interrupted you.
Yeah, I'm back to where I interrupted myself.
Okay.
So she is asking him, she's saying, swear to me that this was true. Swear to me what you said about the Fireflies was true. And she's putting her entire trust in him. And he says, I swear, because he doesn't want to run the risk of her hating him. And despite the fact that she may or may not believe it, we can't tell whether or not she believes it, but I think somewhere deep down, she doesn't think he's telling the truth, but she tries to believe it because she cares about him so much. Maybe that's just me being hopeful and making up things in my head, because I do that a lot. But
headcanon. Your headcanon says this.
So what do all of you think about this? Is Lucy right, or is there something else about it? Does Ellie believe Joel, and why? Or does she not believe Joel, and why?
Because I feel like her face, as he is saying, like, I swear, I feel like her face is just saying, I don't believe you.
Oh, she doesn't believe
but
it.
I'm gonna.
She does not.
But I'm gonna let it slide because I love you.
Yeah, this whole bit here, it felt bizarre to me. Now, when she wakes up in the car, the thing that I was saying I don't see evident here is her not believing that he's telling the truth. Now, I will say this. I think Pedro Pascal delivered the line in a way that was subtly hesitant and awkward enough that somebody who knows him really well might be like, he's talking like he's not telling the truth. Like, I could see that. But I did not see Ellie reacting that way to what he was saying. I didn't see her going, like, looking at him and having a face of, like, that doesn't seem right. But that could have just been because she was laying on her side. But yeah, this moment here, I don't think she believes him at all. I think she absolutely doesn't. I mean, it's a weird thing that happened here. And it doesn't really make sense that she wouldn't believe him, because at what point up until now have we seen him lie about anything? And this is something that would be in her head, her thinking about it. You would think that she knows that she can trust him. She loves him. And I just didn't like this as being the ending. Even if she suspects that that's not what happened at Firefly, I would think she trusts Joel. Whatever it is that he has done, it's because he loves me and he's taking care of me. At this point, that's what their feelings should be. So you're ending this show with Joel having saved her And Ellie having finally come to the point that she trusts somebody and Joel trusts her. And how do you end? She doesn't trust him. So I'm going, this is a weird, awkward place to end it. And I'm thinking she doesn't trust him. I'm thinking she believes he's lying because her face said this to me. Her facial expression, if this is what the actress was trying to convey, she did a good job because this is exactly what that face says to me. It says, okay, I know you're lying and I'm pretty pissed off about that. So now I can't trust you anymore. That's what that face was saying. That is what that face was saying. So now she doesn't trust Joel anymore. Is that what the ending we're supposed to come to and be happy about?
I can't say anything because it ruins the second game.
I can say something. So I'm going to do the same thing here that I did when I was playing Fallout 4. And my buddy had told me how some of the scenarios end. So when I played through, there's a hired gunman who has taken the son, the character you're playing, they've taken his son, right?
Oh,
and you eventually run into him, and he's like, no, your son's alive, I can take you to him. So I shot him dead because he was lying. He was lying. My son is dead. And my buddy totally hated. He's like, there's a whole ton of quests where you meet your son at the institute and you do stuff. I'm like, no, you're lying too. He's dead. All I can do is
You're in cahoots.
You're in cahoots with him. All I can do is leave toys that I find in his room as a memory for him. And so I am going to move forward and say, this is the end of the story, period. There's not a sequel. There's not a game 2. There's not a story 2. That Joel and Ellie, they go and they live with Tommy and in the communist community. And they are happy as communists and they grow beets and they eat a lot and they're fine.
Why
and
beets?
Because Russians are communists and they eat a lot of beets.
I didn't pick up what you're right.
So, and then they are able to build a big enough wall around the community and they thrive and humanity is saved. That's where I'm going.
That's how it goes in my head.
That's how it goes in my head. I'm not going to watch season 2.
That's a great idea. Save yourself.
This ending, doesn't it tell you, like, they're not going to be together in the future? That's what it does. She doesn't trust him. It's like
no,
saying,
they're totally going to be together and happy ever after.
Forever and ever.
Ever and ever.
That is a much better headcanon than I think the portrayed actual canon, which to me is, at some point, Ellie's going to be pissed off that he lied and she's going to leave him. That's my prediction for season 2.
I can't say nothing.
That's okay. But yeah. So what was their journey for? It was so that she could distrust him in the end and go. It's very sad. And it is an incomplete story. Yeah. Randy, I'm with you. This should not have been the end. It should have been Randy's end. Are we good?
I write good endings.
Yeah, you have to have a good ending in a book. It should feel closed off, even and just in a story in general. So even though this is a video game, and maybe they had a plan for season 2. So what was the line again? That was in the game that wasn't in the show. The final.
You have to keep finding something to fight for.
Okay. Yeah. So was Ellie's reaction...
That's a great line.
It is. So was Ellie's reaction the same in the game? Her, like, not trusting him or indicating that she doesn't know if she can trust him. Would you say it was, like, following what happened in the game there?
Yeah.
Did it seem more like she just didn't know and just was like, I'm just going to believe whatever you tell me? Or, because, I mean, it didn't look like she was just saying, I'm just going to believe whatever you tell me.
I think it's more, she doesn't believe him, but she doesn't care that he's lying.
Okay.
She doesn't believe him, but she would rather believe the lie than lose him.
Yeah, I don't think I picked up on that in the show at all.
Which would be satisfying.
It would be, yes.
Right? Because they're both in the same place, that the individual is more important than the sacrifice of that person for the benefit of everyone.
Yeah.
So.
And you know what? How did Marlene think she knew what Ellie would want? Like, she would want to do the right thing. You don't know this girl.
You had known her for like 3 weeks, dude.
And not even, like... Don't you get the impression when we saw Marlene go in and give her the backpack and stuff and the knife and whatever, that conversation that happened there, I did not get the impression that they had had deep conversations before. This was like their first close, like, you know, honest, whatever discussion. She did not know. Like, that's like me walking up to a stranger who told me about how, yeah, my parents got divorced. And like, you know what? I'll bet you I know exactly what your morals are.
Do you do that?
No.
Okay.
Like, I mean, that's what, that was clumsy. You know what? They should have made this show, I think, twice as long as it is, or to cut out some of the fluff episodes and filled in some of these things and definitely closed it off so that you don't have to have a season 2. I think whatever happens in season 2 should be new. It should be something that we couldn't possibly have expected from this, but I'm telling you, I don't see them staying together. I see the conflict between it's sort of like a teenage romance or whatever, and you see like the two. No. Okay, I'm not talking about teenage. Okay, but
I mean, you're talking serious horror there, and let's not go there. All right.
This happens in teen romances a lot, where you want them to be on the same page, right? You want the two characters. You want character A to get with character B. You just want it, but there's always something in the way preventing them from being on the same page. That's what this felt like to me. It felt like a teen romance type of, we can't let them linger, in simpatico for too long. They have to be like at odds all the time, which is, it's good for storytelling, but it's not good for an ending because it just feels like, so we know that there's going to be season 2. We know that this isn't over. And
yeah, I think that I could have turned the material from the game into probably 2 seasons, at least. And that's even with taking out these episodes that really didn't have anything to do with the storyline, or make them more to do with the storyline, which is totally possible as well.
You would have put more in with the cordyceps and stuff.
Yeah, I would have. Yeah,
I kind of missed it. I mean, I still very, very much enjoyed it, but I kind of missed the zombies.
Why did we even have them?
They're so cool looking.
To me, it's bizarre that we had a zombie apocalypse with hardly any zombies, and all these cool, interesting rules and things that were brought and introduced and only used once and then never seen again. Why? What a waste. And it could have made, it's harder to write a story within rules that you establish. It really is hard because you go, okay, I can't have them walk across this, like let's say you wanted to have a scene where they're sneaking across sleeping cordyceps, like a whole bunch of them, and they're going to sneak across. We can't because the tendrils underneath would give away where they are. It makes it, you have to make decisions that make sense. But if you're a good writer, you can use these sort of things to your advantage. And they just didn't. They didn't have any instances where we knew, oh my gosh, they've trampled on a little nest. Now anything for a mile around is going to come after us. That never happened. That happened one time right after it was introduced and then never again. Did we see any more bloaters? No, we did not. We're not even sure we saw clickers a second time because even though we heard them, was the one that came running after the mother in the beginning of this episode actually a clicker? She was
I think it was in like the transition stage.
Yeah.
Right, and you could have done so much with that. Even if we didn't see clickers, you could have used that to nice horror effect where there's a scene and you hear it and it sounds like it's getting closer, right? It's getting closer, right? I mean, you can use that. We don't actually have to see them. We just have to hear them. And we have to know that they're a menace. Oh, and okay, so like the mall, right? So we've got that scene with the mall and there's the one zombie there. And we show it about halfway through the mall's episode, right? And then they don't do anything until like the very end. I'm like, why do that? I mean, all that tension. Make use of that zombie in the mall. I think I said when we reviewed that episode, I would have maybe shown it shuffling along or whatever along.
Yeah. Like grandma in the background.
Just a second, or two, and we can see that it's getting closer, right? That builds that tension. And right, so this is a series about zombies, and I feel that we got gypped on our amount of zombies. I want more. I need my money back on this ticket, please, because I didn't get enough zombies.
Yeah, they cut out a lot of action sequences in general. But they cut out a lot of the cordyceps ones. And like I said, the scariest cordyceps or like infected section they cut out.
Was it something that happens in like an auditorium or something? Or a
It was
basketball court? Or
no, it was the one I was mentioning. What was it? In like the Henry and Sam episode.
Yeah.
Basically you're running around in this very foggy, it's spores. You're walking around in spores in almost a pitch black basement, and you're back and forth finding different things.
Okay.
And there's like infected running around. And it's, in my mind, the scariest infected encounter in the entire game, and they cut it out, and I was very sad about it.
How cool would it have been to have had a scene, because they introduced that it's a possibility, but they didn't do anything with it. You could stand there perfectly still, being able to see a cordyceps walk right past you. That would have been so intense to have just a moment like that at some point. Just like the scene that you're talking about. That would have been so awesome to see that. And another thing that would have been cool to see is, okay, so the cordyceps, we've all picked up on that they are afraid of sunlight, right? You could have had a fantastic chase scene in the dark, like in a basement or something like this, and they're desperately trying to get up to where the sun is, or they know that they have to keep going until the sun comes up. It's sort of like what was it? Dusk till dawn or whatever, where you just have to survive until the sun comes up, that there are so many things that they could have done, and it would have created fantastic tension, and they didn't. And
they were affected by the cold. And you know what? They really didn't do anything with that. We heard it, and it had a very minor, like, oh, that's why we didn't see a zombie this episode, because it's cold, there's snow. But they could have done so much more with that.
Like somebody taking refuge in a refrigerator that was still running for some reason. I don't know, but still, yes.
They do that in the Blob. The original Blob, they do that.
Oh my gosh.
Of course, there's no zombies in the Blob. There's just the Blob.
Don't they end up dropping it off in like Antarctica?
Yes, they did. So
I remember almost nothing from that movie.
Except the end.
Yep.
My dad used to talk about the Blob, how it was so scary. But, so just so many interesting rules that were introduced and nothing was done with it. You might as well not have had this take place during a zombie apocalypse. It could have just been a plague that wiped everybody out, and now people are so desperate that the people are the scariest enemies. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say like, oh, this was a crap story. I'm guessing that the game set things up a lot better and had more detail in it, which it obviously did. And that's why it was so satisfying. And I'm coming out of this going, I think I need to play the game now. Or at least watch other people play.
Yeah, you can watch, like, cutscene onlys on YouTube. You can also watch playthroughs, and then you get more of what I was talking about, like some gameplay aspects that you don't even get because they're not in the cutscenes.
Okay.
So, I highly recommend it. I don't really have a set playthrough that is my favorite, but yeah. If your favorite YouTuber is playthrough,
go watch it.
Go watch it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to, just so that I can see, like, have that same experience that the gamers have had, because I feel like I'm coming out of this going, there was a lot missing, and I'll bet it was in the game. And the things that you have said even to me, most of the time I'm going, yes, they should have done that. Are we good?
We're good. We haven't given a rating.
Oh, yes. Okay, so.
Ooh, sorry. One last thing. All right, so the title for the first episode was When You're Lost in the Darkness. And then this episode was Look for the Light. And that is the slogan for Fireflies. So when you're lost in the darkness, episode 1, that's when he fails and he loses Sarah. Look for the light, that's when he wins, and that's the ending, and he saves Ellie. Anyway, just liked that little bit.
Except I guarantee they're not going to stay together. That's the only thing. They're not. It's not going to happen. Ellie is looking at him like she doesn't trust him. I just know it. I have a thing. Oh, our predictions. So that's right. I remember I went back and looked at which episode I thought about it. It was the Kathleen one, because she was saying, is he worth everything? And I honestly just like that'd be an interesting theme if, he has to sacrifice the world. I can't believe that was the one that was right. Like, to me, I was pretty sure that he was going to die. I thought Joel was going to sacrifice himself to save her.
So did he. He even knows that
Yeah.
he survives till the second game, and he still thought he was going to die.
And it's a good thing, though, to do this.
I knew that wasn't going to happen. But for me, if I was guessing and I didn't already know, that would have been my guess. So I went with pretending I didn't know. So, yes, Lucy did tell me.
And it was before the show came out. It wasn't technically a spoiler, so...
If you're going to be writing a story and you put little themes like this in there subtly, I got to say, that's the one good thing that came out of Kathleen, was that it was a hint towards how the game ends. I mean, other than that, I didn't care for her. I didn't care for her story, anything. All I cared about was Sam and Henry, and you didn't need Kathleen to care about Sam and Henry at all. So, but that maybe was why she was there.
Yeah. It was very hard to not say stuff, but for Kathleen, the entire time, well, a good chunk of the time, I was thinking, "Ooh, that's foreshadowing. Ooh, that's foreshadowing. Ooh, that's..."
See, that makes something rewatchable or rereadable, is when it's subtle enough that you don't even really catch it until your second viewing. Like, I can't believe I even saw it, but it's one of those things that you want to do in your writing, is put things in there that are subtle. You don't have to do this, but it's a trick to make material rereadable, is so that you go back and read it the second time, and that's really the only time you could have picked up on it.
And there is one, so I don't know if you guys remember, but when Kathleen and the military guy, Perry, that's his name, right? Perry?
Yes.
When Kathleen and Perry are in her, like, childhood bedroom, and they're, like, talking about stuff, I was watching that, and I was like, that's even for the second game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Do you know, did they write the stories for the first game and the second game at the same time, or?
Ooh. Second game came out.
Well, I mean, it may have come out much later, but did they have a plan already? Like, we're going to do this in the second game?
I don't think so, because I don't even think it was announced
traditionally
until, like,
in the gaming community, you
2018.
just don't know if a product is going to succeed. I mean, so this did fairly well. And I think it came out, didn't it have kind of like a slow start and then built?
I don't know.
momentum?
I didn't even learn about it until, like, 2017. So I didn't even learn of
The hype
The
was
Last
already
of
there,
Us
and then you're like,
until
So they're not gonna-
5 years after.
So they're not going to put the resources into a sequel until
Yeah.
they know if the first one is going to work. So it would be highly unlikely. I'm not saying that didn't happen. It's impossible. I'm just saying that the odds are against that they knew what would happen in a second game.
They do this sort of thing with shows, especially on Netflix, because they'll typically give the go-ahead for 2 seasons, but then they're like, we'll see how that goes, right? And a smart writer would end the story after that, at the end of the second season or whatever.
With potential.
But have plans, we can do something with this, so we should put the seeds of it in, the first and second season. So that way, if we do get the green light on a third season, people can go back and watch 1 and 2 and go, oh, this was coming back. And so I wonder if there's any information on, like, if they even thought about a
Game
possible
2
second.
didn't even come out until 2020.
But did it take like a long time to develop the game?
I think so, because along with the acting, because they do have, like, actual physical actors, it's a AAA game, so it's very high quality. It takes a lot of work and manpower to do anything of this caliber. So, another one that's, like, one of the most popular, like, AAA, really, really good, like, high quality, not saying games that don't have a budget are bad or anything, they're still really good.
This is a level up, though.
But another one is Detroit Become Human. That's another really big game, but it takes an insane amount of work and effort to go into this. I don't even know how the budget on these games were, or yeah, I don't know how much work. I just know an insane amount of work goes in. So when you were saying like, oh, did they like reshoot the game? That would be so much work.
But I wonder if it would be as much the second time around. Like now technology has gotten to the point that motion capture is, you can actually do motion capture in your garage if you have the tech for it. Like it's not this gigantic studio. So remember in The Matrix, they had a whole bunch of cameras that were around Neo as he did his little back bend thing, right? And I mean, it took all of that. But now you can do the same thing by just CGIing the guy, right? I mean, someone can, or compositing like that's just not difficult to do. You don't need that whole rig setup to make that work. So I wonder if it would be possible. Like it's a little easier to produce something like this now. But I'm so curious. I would love to know if anybody knows about this, put it in the comments. Did the writers of the game, did they know while they were writing the game, did they know that they were going to do a second, or did they do this because some of these things because they were hoping to do a second game? Or was it like, nope, this will be our one game, the end, goodbye forever? Because ending in the game sounds more like it was like a closed ending.
When did the second game come out?
2020, and I just looked it up. It takes like 2 to 3 years to make one of these games.
Okay.
So it's a lot of work.
That you can still have that moment in your mind when you say there might be a second thing, so I'm going to put some stuff in here for the possibility of a part 2. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in the first game, but I think they're making up for it by putting the stuff in the show.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
all right. Do we have anything more on this?
do you guys want to
still haven't given ratings.
want to make
right.
predictions on the second game, season?
I already made it. So this is the end of the story. There isn't a second season. There isn't a second game. That's my prediction.
I like that prediction. That's the one I hope that happens.
Me too.
The only thing that I'm going to say is the same thing I said about Ellie, was that she clearly looks like she doesn't trust Joel anymore. And I think that it's going to come back to bite them, and she's going to be upset at him for lying at some point and leave him. That's all I'm thinking. But ratings?
So, the first watch through, the only thing I picked up was the ammo thing, the lack of ammo, where really maybe there should be more. After discussing it, okay, there's some more. But you know what? This was still, even with those problems, this was my favorite episode of the season. And since I gave another episode a 9.5, I'm going to give this a 9.5 because I just loved it that much. And endings are so hard to do. And I feel they nailed the ending on this. And that is the difference between getting readers. So you can have a bad beginning, and you don't want that, right? And you can write a great book, or you can do a great movie. And if you have a horrible ending, they don't come back.
Yeah.
That's just one of the rules in storytelling. You have to have a good ending. So if there was going to be, which I'm saying there's not, there was going to be more, I would go watch it because the ending was so great. So 9.5 for me.
9.5 for me as well. It's almost a 10, but there's stuff that I just like better in the game, like the really confusing Ellie surgery thing.
For me, I'm going to be rating this one lower. I'm going to give it an 8. Because and that's just this episode on its own. While I found it really nice and entertaining, I found too many errors in it. I didn't find as many errors in the previous episode as I did in this one, and it just felt a little bit forced. So by itself, I'm giving this episode an 8. Do we want to rate the whole show?
Might as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with an 8. Okay, and I know, like, a lot of the episodes I've rated pretty high, and so why would I give such a low rating to the series overall? Now, an 8 is good. I mean, I think 8's a pretty good. 7, I think, would be kind of like, that was a decent show, right? And 8 puts it up there into definitely, it's a higher quality. But there were a couple of episodes in my mind that didn't contribute to the main storyline. And yeah, there's definitely some problems that when you look at the story throughout its entire run, I didn't care for. And so that's why I give it only an 8.
I bet you.
9. Again, I still really, really liked it, but there's just stuff here and there that I didn't like as much.
I'm probably going to make some enemies with this, but I have to give it a 6. And the reason is because you've got 9 episodes, 2 that I felt were unnecessary, 1 that I felt hardly anything happened, and 1 that had a character who was the enemy, and she was bad. And in this one, I felt like you had a very stupid enemy again, like 2 episodes with stupid enemies. So, I mean, with the little mistakes that we found along the way, these things, I mean, I have to say it was top notch in quality production and acting. And I actually think the story with Joel and Ellie is good, but it could have been so much more with very little effort on the parts of the writers. So I'm giving it a 6 only because of all the waste that happened along the way. And I would have liked to have seen more from what was left behind. So I know it's harsh, but I had to do this mathematically. We good?
All right.
All right. Well, until next time. Later.
Bye.
Later.